Order then at 1:37.
Kate, you ready to make your motions, Kate?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so agenda was circulated. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, does somebody want to make a motion to committee adopt the agenda for the December 9th, 2025 Economic Development Committee meeting as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Kate wants to make that motion. We don't need a second, right? It's been a long time since I've done this.
Correct.
Kate, all in favor? Motion's carried. Minutes from October the 17th, 2025. I wasn't here, so I don't know if it's appropriate for me to speak to the minutes, or can I just say that the minutes were presented? Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to that? I won't vote because I was here. If not, the proposed motion's there that the committee adopt the minutes of the December 9th.
No.
Nope, that's not right. That's what it says, but yes. So that the committee adopt the minutes from the October 17th, 2025 Economic Development Committee meeting as presented.
I'll make that motion to adopt that.
All in favor? Motion's carried as well. Unfinished business draft economic development work plan, which is also attached, which is what, page number 10. Page number 11. Oh, sorry, the draft work plan, yeah, so page. So, sorry. Are we going through this today then? Is that what our plan is to discuss this in more in depth? So Karine, do you want to maybe take the lead on this one and tell us where we're going with this?
Well, it's a request for a recommendation. So the plan is being presented as is for 2026 because council hasn't adopted their strat plan for their 4-year term as yet, but we'll work with the current plan as it is, and then we will adjust it as needed. But we do need a work plan going into 2026. So the committee is asked, well, I'm asking the committee for recommendations.
I think we talked about this last time. I know that council doesn't have their agenda yet or work plan yet, but I feel like the airport should be something that's on there without every single person we talk to.
Yeah,
Can I ask some clarifying questions about that? That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
So what is it about the airport that you want on the work plan?
Well, every single company we've talked to that are larger, the airport is something that comes up that like Neolithica put their office in Grand Prairie because they can't get flights. Psychologists can't come to town and do work here. I have a daughter that's special needs and we were looking for OT and SLP, which we couldn't find at the time. There was a company in Edmonton that has flights going to high level regularly to service that area, plus the reserves. And I just feel like without putting something on the airport to work in conjunction with them to try to get something of a scheduled flights or to have something happen with that airport, like I guess scheduled flights is the real topic because like everything from Energy Alberta to Neolithica to like I said, child psychologist, dentist, you name it, had mentioned that they would be willing to travel way more to Peace River if there was flights. And if we don't have it as a target at all or a topic of conversation, then we're never going to make headway with anything. Like, I don't know if we need to reach out to them and see what maybe they need to get regional or scheduled flights to the area. But I feel like without scheduled flights, we're going to have a real hard time getting these larger companies to do projects in Peace River. It is a pain in the butt to fly into Grand Prairie, rent a car, drive 2 hours, vice versa. Like, so I just want something on there so that it's at least something that we brought up in conversation that we could maybe start reaching out to them and see what would it take. Like, what's the baseline? How many tickets do they need to sell a month to be able to be a profitable scheduled service? And then maybe start talking to municipal partners about, like I think about like everything's a subscription model right now. Maybe a subscription model with Baytex, CNRL, all the oil companies, municipalities. And then if we're on this if we have this baseline of income coming in for them. Like, I use a subscription model loosely, but that idea of pre-buying seats a month, well. Now maybe it'd be economically viable for charter, or not chartered, but scheduled flights.
And I'll just say specifically with regards to the actual work plan that that you're looking for recommendations on, I mean, downtown revitalization is why can't sort of airport, functionality or something like that be an actual sort of thing, a priority on our work plan, is the recommendation, I guess, that I think, trying to sort of push forward. So that at least, like we said, it's a conversation, it's something that we can, maybe it's not as straightforward as downtown revitalization, but it's still something that we feel strongly about, to at least get something happening with it, working in conjunction, and it is all about economic development.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, right, like, I believe Peace River lost its scheduled commercial flight before COVID, right? During COVID, all airports across like North America have taken like a significant hit. And I think EIA just celebrated the fact that they hit pre-COVID use of airport flights this year. So like that whole industry has taken a massive hit. And I think that there's a piece here that maybe we have to take away and explore is like, there's maybe a sentiment that they would like to have it available. I certainly know that I would like to be able to fly from here to Calgary personally, for some of my board meetings instead of losing travel time, right? But the other side of that coin is, are they actually gonna use it? Because there's nothing right now stopping anybody from chartering a flight or pre-booking a plane and doing that, right? There's certainly a number of chartered flights that do go in and out of that airport currently. So I think that there is an element here where we can go away and do some market research. But I don't know if the economics are actually gonna be there for justifying this. Just look. Yep, go ahead, Brian.
If I may, and if I could remind people to use their mics, please, because we're being recorded. I do recall about less than 2 years ago as well, the airport manager of Grand Prairie had clearly stated to me, until such time as Grand Prairie can get more regular scheduled flights, they are certainly not going to come. I'm only industry expert, is what he said to me, is that they are not going to schedule regular scheduled flights to Peace River when we can't even get what we need out of Grand Prairie. So it is some time to I would suggest getting regular scheduled flights based on that conversation, and similarly with Lethbridge. It would be many years before we'd have a regular schedule. Now, is it possible to have a regular scheduled charter? But not WestJet or Air Canada or those small airlines, but a regular charter. If I could just say one more thing. I did hear something slightly different though in what your narrative that you said earlier, was like trying to see what they need to be successful as an airport. Because a lot of the conversation has been the town needs to take the airport back, and that's a very different conversation than what does those who currently own and operate the airport need to be successful, right? Which is a totally different conversation, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure if we'd be looking at something like a WestJet or an Air Canada to start off with, but I just pulled up Central Mountain Air, who flies out of High Level. And I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to see if they would stop here and pick up more passengers on their way to Edmonton, which is a regularly scheduled flight for them. So I think there's definitely opportunities to explore with the smaller carriers.
Could you repeat the name from
Central Mountain Air.
That is exactly what I was gonna bring up, is that, there's been people from Peace River who went to, pre-COVID, that went to Fort Smith because there's another operator other than Central Mountain. And they fly Yellowknife, Fort Smith, Hay River, High Level. I know growing up, it was annoying for me, but when we flew to High Level, we would have to stop in Peace River and pick up people back, yeah. growing up in high level, that was really annoying, but now that was part of the scheduled flights, like 2 days a week, they stopped in Peace River, and 2 days a week, I believe it was direct. High level has two airline carriers, two fuel suppliers operating in that airport,
And how, oh,
and that's,
every day, like a flight every day out of there?
I don't know, it's every day, but
We
there's,
can do the research anyway.
go ahead, yeah.
I believe they fly twice a week.
I'm taking the mic.
Go ahead.
So this has come up a couple of different times. We've had this conversation. The chamber had written a letter to all the municipalities, urging the municipalities to take back the airport. Town of Peace River's response was no, we're not interested. The other three municipalities said, yes, that is something that we need to be looking at. Reason for this, I think most people are aware, we've been doing lots of advocating at the chamber level with the minister. I can't even tell you how many meetings I've had with the transportation minister and deputy minister and chief of staff, and we brought this up many times. There's a half dozen airports across the province that are looking to get support. The province has indicated to us on numerous times, absolutely, the province is looking to provide support to small regional airports because we see the importance of them. Peace River, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Medicine Hat, Grand Prairie's in the conversation, High Level, Lethbridge. So these are all the airports that the province has identified as being underutilized and or potential for additional services. Grand Prairie and Fort Mac have service, but they're looking to expand their service. Just like Pat said, pre-COVID, they're not at their numbers. They're trying to get additional flights. So they have a different priority than we do. Lloydminster lost WestJet. They have no air service there, but they have an airport that is functional. The problem that we've run into time and time again in my conversations, Peace River is unique, the only one in the province that isn't owned by the municipality. And because of that, they don't receive or can't access the same level of provincial funding that is potentially there that the ministry is working on, because it's not owned by the municipality. So it's a tough one. They're not saying to us, Peace River is a no, they're just saying it's not quite gonna be the same funding model because you guys are different. I've spoken with Will, who is the airport manager at Grand Prairie. He's also kind of the part-time manager for Peace River. I've spoken to him many times. They are working on a study. I talked to him this summer. He was gonna have a study. I talked to him just a week ago. Said, where's this study? Well, the election came and we kind of got sidetracked and yada, yada, yada. I said, well, like we need this study. So I said the same thing to him. You guys don't want the airport to go back to the municipality because you guys are experts in running an airport. That's what I was told by Nate Hillman and the whole crew when they gave me, slapped my wrist for writing that letter. And I said, I don't care who runs the airport. I don't think any of us care who runs the airport. All we need to know is that there's services available. So I've said to Will and I've said to Nate and I've said to all of those guys out there, I'm running back and forth trying to get funding. I don't know what I'm asking for, but I need a report that tells me, so do you need to sell, 100 seats a month? Do you need to sell 200 seats a month? Do those seats need to be $600 a ticket? Do they need to be $1,200 a ticket? Like that's what the government is asking for us to provide. So we're working on that. The question is ultimately the town's role or not, right? I mean, it really is very simple. If the town is not going to have any role in this, then there's no more conversation for us to be had here. It's done, right? If the town is saying, yes, we do see a role as a partner in a regional group, because I think there's a regional group that's talking about it, okay, then that's a different story. So I think really, everybody agrees, we'd love to have some semblance of service. It's just, is it going to be involved with the town? If it's not being involved with the town, then the EDC group has to be talking to the municipalities that maybe are looking at it or going directly to that group and saying, so it's all valid. It just, there are regional airlines, small Central Mountain Air style airlines that are in conversation looking at the opportunities of Peace River. But again, if we're gonna get provincial funding, and I don't know what that looks like, I was just in Edmonton and met with the deputy minister, and we had a good long conversation about it, and they're working on it. She couldn't give me a timeline. They've been telling us they've been working on it for a year at least. I don't know. But of course, we're still pushing for it because town involved or town not involved, if the other three municipalities or two municipalities or one municipality decide to take that airport over, at least there is provincial funding access is more likely, I guess.
Can I clarify that? So I've ran an airport in a different community. The only, like aside from leases for like provincial services, right? So like the fire lease or the provincial like medevac lease, the funding from the province was pretty strictly limited to capital, right? And it was in competition. It was the same STIP program that we applied for roads, for bridges. It was the same pot of money. There's not operating dollars for an airport, or there hasn't been. If they're working on that, I don't know that they've actually communicated that widespread to municipalities. And the money my past community, I pushed them very hard to increase the lease rate for the fire base in that community. And they were gonna walk away rather than renew it until there was a big wildfire in another community. And they needed our runway. And before that, they were not, and it was pennies on what the valuation for that actual property should have been. It wasn't a cost recovery lease, it was. So just like, keep in mind, if there's funding, it might not be for operating funding, and it costs a lot of money to run an airport. And here or there, a lot of the services, it's not a cost recovery money, or model. Typically, they run a deficit unless they're really, really big and have a large investment portfolio. And so that's some of the caution, I would say, with some of this conversation. And it is a very different airport than the one we sold, right? When we sold the airport as a municipality, our staff went with it. Our operations experience went with it. We don't have that anymore in-house, right? We would have to rebuild an operating program up there. We would have to retrain operators. It's not just a switch that happens to take it over if they wanted to sell.
One more.
Sure, and then we're gonna move on. Otherwise we
No,
hear all day.
absolutely. I just want to caution to, and I recognize or understand that it may be a focus of the government to get, some of these airports happening. But we also need to be very cautious or aware that funding happens this year and it goes away next year. And so you take on that huge operational cost of whether it is even operational funding. But look at our MSI grant and funding is just declined and declined, right? They're really great. For failing to continuity to continue on. So if we knew too, as a municipality, that they're gonna provide capital, but ongoing funding for 10 or 15 or 20 years, like the MSI did at that time when they came up with the MSI program, Municipal Sustainability Initiative, they went into agreements with all the municipalities and said, for the next 20 years, you're gonna get funding. We don't know how much it's gonna be, is based on our budgets, but you're gonna get consistent, steady funding. And so that would also be something that it would be, you know, when they're talking about giving money to airports, I'd be asking, is it a long-term sustainable fund that they intend to provide to, when you are in those conversations, because we're not having those conversations with the ministers, right? So if you could ask that when you are, thank you.
Okay, for the sake of time, we're just gonna move on then. So going back to where we're really at unfinished business. So at this point, Crane, you want a motion for us to accept this proposed development work plan?
I
No?
don't think we need a motion.
No? Okay, so then we're gonna move on, unless there's any more comments on that piece.
Yeah, any additional recommendations?
I think it's worth including on the administration side, something about the airport here. I
It
don't.
should fall under the administration, strategic projects involved,
Yeah,
right? You're not the lead, but you should be involved.
I don't disagree that there is an argument here to say, hey, like what is the barrier so that we can come back with that information?
So that's a different conversation, yes.
Right, I don't think that that's out of line to include in our, I just jumping in there. The bigger, what's the municipality's role in that conversation? That's a whole conversation that happens at the council level. There have been preliminary talks at that. That have happened in the last year. But I don't know that they're going anywhere, and there has been no evidence that group wants to sell, so.
I wasn't trying to instigate a conversation about it, but I'm just saying that truly for us, if the town is saying no, there's no more conversation really at this level because we're a subset of the town, right? That's all I was saying. I'm not trying to drive that conversation if it's gonna happen or not, because it is a council decision, not us, but just for the sake of time, just to keep us moving forward, because it's a slippery slope. When we get started, we don't stop, right? So Noah, you had your light on.
I guess not much to add past what Pat said there. I don't think anyone's advocating necessarily that the town take it over. I would just like to see it included in our work plan. I don't mean we have to take it over or do anything specific, but I think we would all like to help move along something. So I don't know what exactly that looks like, but I think that's more, at least from where I sit, what I thought the messaging was.
And I don't disagree. Like I said, I think that is very valid to go and say, hey, is there a market? Is there, what do these operators do to look at running out of here? I think that that's stuff that is very much within our wheelhouse, do, and we could definitely look at that. I think the bigger conversation is a piece that we'll have it at a different level, what our role is, and certainly as those conversations happen, I think that there will be information that comes out to this level, community, to our neighbors, if this conversation still.
Okay, so we're gonna move on then, right? We covered that. We can move on to the economic development webpage. Page 13. Corinne, do you have anything that you wanna speak to on that one?
It was brought forward in the last meeting, but it was the first time, being presented to the committee. So hopefully you have all gotten a chance to take a look at the page, and if there's anything you'd like to see added or removed, or any recommendation for that webpage.
Thank you. Is there anybody who's looked at it, has any comments?
I would just say, Corinne, that it is really nice to actually see all the different grants and things on there, like I did when I was sort of on there and just kind of checking it out. It is nice to have those kinds of things sort of up front and present, because there's a lot out there that a lot of people don't know about, and it's really hard to get that information out there. So I did find it sort of user friendly and good on that level, so good job.
Thanks. Well, with your help, I hope that you'll spread it to the rest of the business community, that there's money out there that they can access that's outside of the municipal grants as well. So yeah, looking forward to your support with that.
If there's nothing else on that, then we'll move on to the next item. So into new business, the 2026 meeting schedule for the EDC, which is what, page 14. So there's 4 proposed dates: March 17th, 26th, 20th, and December 8th. Sorry, Barb, is there a motion?
No, I just, what happened? We sort of stopped accepting information or something. There you go. So we
Sorry,
asked for a motion this time.
the dates.
Yeah, please.
Hey, do you want to go back and make a motion on any of the other things? I asked if we needed to make a motion on the work
That
plan.
was I might have been, sorry.
Right, so do we need to go back and make a motion? Yeah, okay, so we're gonna move back to 13, page 13. So the draft economic development work plan. So we made one revision. I think the revision is gonna fall, and correct me if I'm wrong, strategic projects involved. Is that the best place for the airport to go?
Definitely.
Right, it's an administration operational plan. So with that revision, does somebody want to make a motion to accept the work plan as revised?
I'll make that motion.
Noah, perfect, thank you. All in favor? Okay, so that one's carried. So then we'll move on to, so with the development webpage, is there a motion required there? I would just for information purposes, I think. Yeah, so we can pass that one. So then we're moving back on to the proposed meeting dates again, which are 17th of March, 26th of May, 20th of October, December 8th. I don't know if there's any conversation piece there. It's pretty hard for anyone of us to predict if we're going to be available or not on those dates. So I think we just have to run with it and hope for the best and make adjustments as necessary, right? So if somebody wants to make a motion to accept those proposed meeting dates as presented. I'll make that motion. Okay, perfect. Benji, all in favor? That motion's carried. So moving on to business grant program policy update.
So for that one, we had presented earlier this year that we wanted to expand the business grant program moving forward. From that, there's two that we would move on immediately, and then there's one that we need to clarify the eligibility criteria. So right now, it only states it's not explicitly stated in our policy. It only says that the business needs to have a business license to apply for a grant. It does not say that it needs to be within the town of Peace River explicitly. So we need to update the policy that it has that stated in there. So that will be presented to council for them to accept. And then we have the criteria being expanded to include the building systems. Right now, it's only for exterior. So this was, as I said, presented earlier this year. So we wanted to include if persons were making substantive renovation to the building system as well, that would be considered in the grant application. Just bearing in mind some of the older buildings that we have downtown here. And then also to include the opportunity for persons moving from a home-based business to a storefront. So they will be able to apply for grants for moving from a home base to a storefront. So those are the immediate changes that will be presented to council for adoption into the business grant expansion.
Any comments or questions, discussion on that piece? Okay.
I'll say one thing, and I know we had to discuss this with the grants before. Just when you're saying the home-based businesses wishing to move, and then it says existing businesses wanting to expand products or services. If they want to buy inventory, is that something, I know we had kind of questioned that before on one of the grants, so I didn't know if we needed better clarification on the word products. So that was my one thought.
I can clarify, I will clarify that it excludes inventory as, so that way I'm not trying to define all the products. It's best to just say it excludes inventory, if that makes more. But yeah, okay, I'll do that. Thanks.
My other concern is the amount of money for the grants. Now, if we include electrical, roofing, plumbing, I don't know if you've ever done any of those. But like my electrical, 10 years ago, my electrical redo at Mr. Mike's was over 100 grand. Just electrical, as an example. So my only caution would be by grouping some of those repairs, like when it comes to electrical, or when it comes to plumbing, when it comes to something like that, I can kind of see even a roof, like somebody told me they got quoted to do a roof, it was like $160,000. So I don't know if we want to put like generalized repairs in there, because I mean, it could drive that budget really, really quick, really fast.
Expand the budget, in one application.
It's very true.
Like, I feel like windows, like as a storefront, kind of fit with that, because it's kind of beautification, and like if it modernizes the front of a building, like I could kind of get that one, I suppose. You know, digital signage kind of fits, I think, but like roof, electrical, plumbing, I don't know like what that would look like when we're get to the voting or like the budgets.
I agree with.
I think the aesthetic end of it, right? Like if we're doing them all on a case by case basis or whatever, if we do think that it increase,
Oh, I'm sorry,
if we do think that it increases sort of the storefront look, or it helps with something like that in order to make it, you know, like you said, more modernized or something, because it'll still be on a case by case basis, right? Have you looked at these? Yeah. So I agree.
So if we're just gonna reject anything that comes in,
Yeah.
then we shouldn't even have it in there as a policy piece, right? Like, because it's just gonna.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, the intent of it. I think we discourage people, right? They reply, oh, it's a plumbing related, reject. It's electrical related, reject. pretty soon they're gonna say, well, all you guys do is reject. No,
Yeah.
we just reject those specific things, so just maybe they don't stay in.
This was decided on earlier this year, so I have no problem removing it, because we had presented, I think, 4 or 5 options, and the committee had decided as this was one of the ones to move forward with. So if you want me to bring forward one of the other options, we can do that and remove this one, if you don't wanna do that.
I think the spirit of it, like Kay was saying, should just be in the spirit of beautification. I don't think we would necessarily say no to something like siding for an older building. I think it's more the maintenance items, a roof, plumbing, electrical, like you're saying that someone walking down Main Street likely isn't going to see, and it's just a cost that most owners should be prepared for and have to cover themselves anyways, right?
So just so that I understand, so you'd like me to remove that one then from the expansion of the grant,
Well,
like point number 2?
can you just clarify? Can we just take out electric and sort of plumbing and, can we just kind of remove a few things? Like, I still think that the point itself is valid. Like, additional building systems do count, but it's like, there would be no way for us to ever know if electrical actually got done or anything like that, right? And the whole point of this is that we're hoping that these business owners are taking this money and doing something that's going to sort of make that difference that someone would notice, kind of thing. So I do think that some costs are just part of doing business, but the point itself is still valid. I mean, renovations on additional building systems is still a thing. It's just maybe not for specifically plumbing and electrical.
And roof.
And room, yeah, sorry, if we can just specifically remove those.
I'm trying to go excluding.
Yeah, cause that's the thing, as it is right now, it doesn't, it doesn't give an exhaustive list, like it does it, et cetera. So there is opportunity, and I get where Lane was saying, we don't wanna have them submit it and then we're saying no to them. So maybe we can put the exclude as opposed to listing all the
Yeah.
things that would be included. So, just so I'm clear. So electrical, plumbing would be excluded, because roof would not be excluded, because currently roof is included because it's technically exterior. So, that was just an example listed there. So right now, persons can apply for, roof, so we don't have to exclude it from the expansion. So we just exclude electrical and plumbing, and what was the third one?
The third was roof,
Oh, so
Not-
just,
not to beat this one down too many times, but currently with signage, obviously there's typically an electrical component to signage. Is that approved under the current grant? So we gotta be careful how we put electrical, because now all of a sudden, if I'm applying for a sign and I have an electrical component, but we're saying electrical is not included. Again, I don't wanna make this more complicated, but we do need to be clear on that, because I think signage is a big one that people apply for, right? So.
because we have approved electrical stuff in the past.
Yeah, or
So maybe it's electrical related to signage versus electrical, which could be, I rewired my whole entire building to the tune of $100,000 because of, I don't know.
Then there's electrical related to security system, because we have that included as well. So I think if we're gonna say exclude, would have to be even more specific. We can't just say for signage, because there are other electrical components to other parts of the grant that would be applicable.
or we let them apply and,
I was gonna say, do we have to even mention either one of them?
yeah.
Like, just not even mention them at all, just building systems and let the board make the decision on
What
if it passes or not,
Okay, I have
right?
no problem
Is
taking
that-
on
yeah.
that.
The cleanest way, I don't know.
Does this change, just throwing it out there, does the?
You have your mic?
Mike,
You have your mic?
Making this change just make the program too complicated to administer? Like, is it cleaner to just leave it as it is? I just wanna ask.
as it is now. Because there's so many ambiguity to the policy as it is now that we need to start defining things, because we have gotten an application that is outside of the spirit of what the policy is intended to do, that we need to clarify some of the things in the policy in its current state.
So are we proposing amending this so that those ones that would be outside of policy are eligible, or I'm just kind of curious what the driver is for this?
we're trying to make it as explicit as possible, but if we're gonna, be excluding things or not stating it, it might, I get where you're going, Pat, with that, because then if it complicates the application process even more, then it defeats what we're trying to do even now by clarifying. So, that being said, though, we do need, because as it is now, we don't have this wording in the policy at all. So there has to be something included in the policy that speaks specifically to the, building systems. So maybe I can break it out a little bit more and create, more clarification to what we refer to for building systems, but yeah, we definitely need to put some more verbiage in the policy in its current state.
So with that being said, we're just gonna have this as information for now until you give us a revision. There's no need for a motion or anything like that. So unless there's any more conversation on this piece, we'll move on. Yep. Okay, so we're moving on to nomination for the EDC Ambassador Award for the 2026 Davis Awards.
Yes, you guys.
Does anybody have a nomination in mind? Barb does.
I would like to put forward, Tim Hortons, and the reason being the owners of Tim Hortons. Sorry. What is the criteria again? I just feel that as a business, and maybe it doesn't fall under the proper criteria. But I do know, for example, anytime, our fire department has to respond, they are there to support with coffee and food or there, and I feel they contribute to a lot of community events and organizations and of those things, are good examples that would hopefully, and I know we have many businesses that, step up and provide and support our organizations. This is just one for me personally that came to mind. And maybe perhaps the community isn't aware, of that. But I'm not sure if it exactly falls under the criteria.
Let's assume it does. So there's a nomination or a suggestion for somebody. I think that the criteria was very general. I'd be surprised if they wouldn't fall under that nomination.
Pardon me?
I said, I think the criteria was general enough that I would be surprised if they wouldn't fall under like being eligible to be a nominee. I would think that they would be eligible for sure.
0.6 on so on page.
Is it there?
Yeah, page 23, 0.6 defines the, criteria.
It was just a comment I read.
Yeah, so is there anybody else that has any other suggestions on any other potentially eligible businesses?
I think this doesn't even have to be a business, does it? Because I remember, Peter.
Well, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a business necessarily.
Yeah, are we saying Tim Hortons as the business or are we saying Gordon or Barb?
I see them as one of the same.
I think that probably would be the business only because, I mean, as Gordon Barb transition and their son-in-law and daughter and everybody else kind of takes over, it is kind of one and the same, I think, like it
Yeah.
would be. Right, so not to take anything away from Gordon Barb, but I certainly think that,
Yeah.
yeah, the next gen is as involved as Gordon Barb are, right, so.
Peace River Adventures comes to mind, I'll say just for what they have brought to the community, how they're constantly trying to expand their business. Things that they do to try to help the community, outside of their business, they're very community minded. Involved in the jet boat races, etc. And I know they came up last year as well, so that's Felix and Alana come to mind as well.
Anybody else?
Or doing secret vote or?
Well, probably best to do a secret vote, right? How do we do this? Does anybody have scrap paper that we can write our,
Whether we just stop the live feed and raise their hand.
I don't know, what's the procedure? You guys tell me.
I think you just, like, feed.
I don't know how to manage I don't know how to drive anything, so.
Can you cut the feed for,
Just pay.
okay, so, well. But then I still have to, we would have to read the winner, or do we just silently? Oh, that's gonna be. that's
I
gonna
would
be
suggest we
there.
move into closed session. I would suggest we move into closed session for a bit of a discussion and then come out and announce who it is.
Great recommendation.
No announce.
Oh, yeah, well, decide that we made a decision, I guess it is. Yeah.
Okay, so then somebody would need to make a motion to go in camera at 2:17, is that right? Is that the procedure? Somebody has to make that motion. So the Councillor Juice wants to make that motion.
Somehow you have to do something. I don't know how to drive, sorry.
Please, or could we do it at the end of the meeting? Does it have to be done?
Somebody make a motion?
Somebody made a motion, yeah,
Brenda.
and then we'll vote if we're all in favor. Those in favor? Okay, so the motion's carried, so we're gonna go into camera at 2:17 PM. All in favor? Okay, we'll come on to camera at 2:21. Okay, so we're gonna move on to reports. Project updates. Are there any project updates that we need to talk about? Anything that comes to anybody's mind? No? Barb, you got a project update you wanna talk about?
Well, I don't know, I thought maybe.
You wanna turn your?
It's not really a project, but I'm not sure if you shared that we're going to that conference that's to do with
In January?
And maybe you should speak a little bit about. You just attended a franchise one or something. That's okay. Not at this time.
That's in your quarterly highlight, okay?
Just, I think we have a meeting, so just heads up, we are going to be attending, what is that conference?
International Council of Shopping Centers.
Okay, and so out of the retail gap analysis, the person who is, undertaking this report, it was highly suggested, a couple of things, so we'll be attending the franchise, conference where all the franchisees, is that the right word? Attend, and then this other, one was highly recommended that is attending this to see what opportunities are available there. So because we're not gonna meet again until post these events, I thought I would share, and Kareem was at the franchise one in November.
With me.
And made lots and lots of contacts, so, you know, I guess those are where we're trying to expand our reach a little bit and get a bit more information and make some connections, and so things are happening in the background. And hopefully all of a sudden, everything's just gonna come to bloom. But that's part of the retail gap, and this is a project, so that's why I sort of started on that a little bit.
Okay.
That retail gap analysis, I think we're expecting in the end of January, February. Yeah.
Perfect. Any other project updates? No, okay, if not, we'll move on to downtown revitalization. Is there anybody want to speak to that? All right, I feel like we went over that with the, well, we did talk about it, but I wasn't sure if there was anything else that was in particular, Carmen.
I'll say not in the revitalization area, but it is nice to see with the permits, how we've got the building coming up next door, and then it looks like the gas station is getting ready to rebuild, so that's gonna be nice, having a couple of new developments on Main Street, so hopefully that keeps the ball rolling, and so that's good to see in the reports.
That's exciting.
Very.
And the Pizza Hut one is building a residential.
Yes, yeah.
I think all of us now, our conversation before it's all covered it, right?
Okay. Okay, if there's nothing else under downtown revitalization, we'll move on to entrepreneurship opportunities. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that one. Doesn't look like it. Tourism? Benji?
I was just gonna say, everybody don't forget pond hockey coming in March, since we probably won't have a meeting before then. It's one of the bigger tourism things. If you guys wanna volunteer, don't hesitate.
Raise your hands up, let's. Gone positive March.
Okay, anything else under tourism? No? Yeah, I'm just gonna mention under tourism for everybody to be aware. Peace River, so March 18th to the 21st, Peace River hosts provincials, basketball provincials in Peace River, March 18th to the 21st for both senior boys and senior girls. So there's typically 10 to 14 teams in each from across the province coming to Peace River during
18 to 21?
18th, March 18th to the 21st. Yeah, so I just bring it up as a piece of information as a, to me, a great boys and girls. Yeah, so Glen Mary's hosting the senior girls. Well, it's not March Madness. It's kind of like March Madness is the states, right? But like it's the same. Yeah, it's the provincial championship is what it is, right? So Glen Mary is hosting the senior girls provincial championship, and Peace High is hosting the senior boys provincial championship. So
That's awesome.
it is really
Thank
good
you, Sam.
as a tourism thing, bringing again, 10 to 14 teams from across the province to Peace River for 3 or 4 days, staying in the hotels and eating in the restaurants and all that stuff. There'll be, what would there be? There'd be 13 to 15 kids per team, so plus their families coming, because again, it is a provincial championship, right? So of course, every mom and dad that can go will want to be here, so anyway, it's a good thing. So good tourism thing, even though it's not quite the tourism that we're looking for always. I think that these kinds of events being encouraged to be in Peace River are really good tourism drivers, because they make people come here versus saying, hey, we'd love you to come here for the River Valley and the opportunities. These people are coming, right? So. Okay, so then if there wasn't anything else under tourism, we'll move on to, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, if we could jump back to the revitalization a little bit, I think I'd like to talk a bit more about some of the recommendations Rogers Brooks made. And I know we were talking about getting like a package from the town in place essentially to do something with blade signs. So I wanted to follow up on where that was at and see if that's an item we can take away as a committee to work on. It might be part of what we were talking about earlier, which is my hesitation to bring it up, but I'd like to start that discussion. I think it'd be really good to have a project that we can really be assigned and work on from here.
I think at the last meeting, someone had brought, like, I don't remember who, but it was brought up, and I do have it on my plate right now, whether we're gonna do a special grant just for signs, or we're gonna allocate a portion or something like that, but we did say, I have it on my desk right now, so I'm not sure if we're gonna do waiving off the permit fees or like how we wanna administer it. So that was the takeaway, I think.
I could be wrong, Mr. Chair, was it discussions like, and again, just. Was it looking to hopefully like standardize? Are we hoping that every blade sign, or we would like, for example, picking, because lots of communities do have a community standard, right? It has to be a certain color, certain, and would that be sort of what we would be looking for, is to create recommendations on the styles that we look and have one or two, because you don't want every sign looking the same. And then hopefully develop the policy as part of that. These are the types of blade signs that would be available, and then looking for a vendor that we get preferred pricing on. Is that the direction that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
And then once we understand the 4 options, for example, of style, and we get pricing on those signs, then we would be able to develop the grant knowing that each sign or whatever requires X number of funding. But that's the work the committee would be looking, is to help create those styles and stuff to then to get it to council to adopt them.
Do you have anything else? I was just gonna comment, sorry, go ahead.
I have more questions than anything. I mean, I'm not quite sure on what the process looks like. I guess my comment is more about getting something started with some timelines of when we can make this happen. I think with the meeting not coming up until March, it's probably a good time for us to be talking about it. Maybe it's a group of us decide to work on it, because we had the presentation back in September. I think it'd be really good to actually see some change. It would be a visible change in Peace River. So I think it'd be good to set some timelines on it. Like maybe we try and have something, and I don't know processes, but this summer, like an actual target to see some changes is kind of what I'd like to push for, and then offer my time to help. And I don't know what that looks like, if it's walking Main Street and getting a list of interest or whatever it is, but I'd like to push and see a little bit of progress that we could actually see downtown.
Okay. Thanks. Go ahead.
So I was gonna just ask, so would the next step then be then that Crane potentially recruits,
Yeah.
just as a, like a, not having meetings like this, but just be like, okay, yeah, this is our, we're gonna put the work plan in place. I was just gonna say too, I think that another part of this has to be relatively easy implementation from a permitting standpoint, because I think people get confused by the signing and stuff like that in the permitting process. So it has to be, I think, really just like a, like a peel and stick kind of thing, however that looks, right?
100%.
Okay, if we could then just take this conversation, we sketch out what we think the order of operation would be and where, and then.
Yeah.
That would be great. I would love to see that.
Already have persons asking about it, so definitely, yeah.
Start implementing.
So you can make it easy for Noah, he can just go to those stores first, because they've already asked him. Let's give him the now.
100%.
Fair enough. Is there anything else under that anybody wants to discuss? Barb, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I was just thinking, yeah, because we have to decide like design styles and materials and colors, there's a lot in it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so we did tourism, change the narrative. Does anybody have anything they want to speak to on change the narrative? If not, we'll move on to business information process and programs. Under this one, I just have two questions. If anybody from the town is attending Growing the North and the EDC or the Economic Developers Conference in Kananaskis, is there anybody going from the town? Yeah, okay. Okay, I guess we'll move on to business retention specialist quarterly highlight. You're up, Corinne.
Yay, so it's hard to do the quarter, so bear with me if there's any overlap, because I started in February, so I was like, I'm doing annual quarters, but then I was like, no, we're not meeting again until March, so I do have some stuff that happened outside of the quarter three. But the highlights, the retail gap analysis, so we completed the survey back in October, and we did have we didn't meet my aggressive target of 500 respondents, but we did meet the enough respondents that would give an educated that would give the contractor enough information to make decisions from the responses received, which was pretty good, because there is survey fatigue, because I think during that period we had like 3 surveys. So the fact that we were able to get our numbers, I have to highlight that and thank the community as well for completing. The non-residential tax incentive bylaw that was passed back in September, so that is now in effect, and it is for all developments that has permits issued from January 1st of this year, because as you know, you do your tax assessment a year after the fact. So at the end of this year, when they get their tax assessment in June, then they can start applying for incentives based on development done for this year. For the business recognition policy, we have we formulated it during the quarter. It was presented and adopted by council November 2024, and it's now in effect, and that's where we were just pulling our data for the Davis Awards. And going forward, we'll have a formalized way of recognizing businesses that's been operating in the town for over 10 years, and then after that we'll do incremental recognition on a 5-year basis. So just a way to make sure that businesses understand that we do appreciate their contribution to the community. We also I attended the various meetings. We had the local ones, Community Futures, Chamber of Commerce, GM meetings, and then the regional, the PREDA, and the Mighty Peace tourism as well. There's sorry, just organized the regional EDO tour with a group of 5 other municipalities and towns, and for the Invest Alberta team, and that was actually cancelled. So the council should be writing their letter of disappointment for, so this is, I think, is the 3rd time that we have planned and they have canceled, and this time around we have no date as to when they will reschedule. So
if I could just add to that, if I could just add to that quickly, I believe we had a separate plan with them as well as council that they also canceled. So I think there's some advocating to be done from a town and council point of view as well, going forward on that. So, yeah.
So yes, we definitely will be doing that because we don't want it to, as a region, we are, and I've said this internally, and I'm sure you guys have seen it in material, where there's things coming from the province that actually cut at Grand Prairie, as if the province ends at Grand Prairie. So we need to be a little bit louder that, hey, the province does extend all the way up to the Northwest Territories, and the Northwest Territories doesn't stop at Grand Prairie. So I think, yeah, so we'll be taking action on that from the council standpoint. And then we also initiated work on the third intake for the NRED grant. So the application deadline was on November 28th. So we did submit with the support of council for a tourism marketing campaign that will not be just a one and done, but we will have some continuity, because sports tourism is actually something that other areas have capitalized on, and we have the facilities here to host, and which Lynn just spoke to, that we have the capacity, so we need to just utilize it. So that's actually going to be part of our driver as well. And Travel Alberta have expressed that they're trying to get to, I don't remember what the figure is, it's some billion, 25 or 35 billion by 2035. So as a province, they're investing a lot of money into tourism. And as a town, we need to do our part as well. So we're going to be focusing on that going forward. And Barb mentioned, so we became members of the ICSC, and they do have some free webinars as well. So I've attended a few of those, gathered some very relevant information that we can take forward after we've gotten the retail gap analysis information that I can use to inform some of those plans going forward. And then we also launched a monthly industry-specific roundtable discussion with Head of Administration, CEO Miller, and business leaders. And the hope is going forward that we will have this on an ongoing basis to engage the business community and create a safe space for them to have the ear of administration, so that which is part of changing the narrative as well, to be honest, because we, it's been said, no need to sugarcoat it, the town of no, the administration of no, whatever. We need to change that narrative, because there's so much changes that has happened in the past few years, which I guarantee you a lot of businesses don't know about, and we want to make sure that we are part of the change that we want to see. So we have initiated that, and I'm hoping going forward that it will be supported by the business community as we, get things going. So yeah, those are the highlights.
Can I ask something on that? Is there like findings that come out of those meetings or action items of any sort? Like, would you ever share? Like, do we ever get to hear any of that?
It's top secret.
Yeah.
So we will be presenting at the end. So I have made the notes because we've only had 2 so far. The goal is actually to do like a roundup after we've gathered enough information to actually present whether there's a common thread that's going through the conversations or the action items that's coming out, and what we have done as an administration based on what we have heard, whether it's something that we can do immediately or what plans we have put in place to, put action to the suggestions made, but definitely, yeah.
What industries have you done?
So we did tourism, which was hotels and restaurants, and then we did professional services, which was like insurance, bankers, and financial advisors.
And what kind of turnouts are you having?
We had like 15 at the first one, and I believe 12 or 13 at the second.
Okay.
So yeah.
Hopefully hopefully as word gets out amongst community business, that they'll say, oh, I should go to the next session, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to be heard, there you go.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Not on Facebook.
Exactly, face to face. Yep.
I just have a question about that. Are you coordinating your efforts with the Chamber of Commerce?
No,
Is that a no, it's just strictly from the town?
This was a pure CAO initiative.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I just pretty looked at my phone. Okay, thank you, Kareem. Are there any other questions in relations to her quarterly highlight? If not, monthly development reports, so September's, October's and November's development reports are there, so we've already talked about pizza place next door with the residential development, gas station. Obviously, there's still the West Hill development update. Few building demolitions, things like that, so I don't know if there's anything, if anybody has any questions or anything on any of those. Okay. For information. Same with the next. Section 7, I think is just all for information. You can review that on your own terms. Move on to 8, key communication items. Nothing there. I don't know if anybody have any key communication items. No, moving right along. Number 9, adjournment. There you go. Look at that, 2:43. I thought this was gonna be a long meeting. This was a fast meeting. Good job. Okay, so we'll adjourn at 2:43.